You are listening to The Mismatch presented by FanDuel. FanDuel has made it easier than ever to see how your bets are doing without even opening the app. Because now you can get the latest updates and follow along in real time directly from your phone's lock screen or Apple Watch. No login required. Just head to your My Bets page to turn it on. And if you don't already have it, download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today to get in on the action. The Ringer is committed to responsible gambling. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available. And listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Remember, you must be 21 or over and present in select states. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
Welcome to The Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every week from TheRinger.com is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
I missed you, Verno. I missed you. I really missed you.
I missed you as well. It was hard last week. Obviously, we got the news very early in the week. The baby was coming. And sure enough, the baby arrived. So, look, we've talked about this on the show. You've talked about how kid number 4 was on the way. You also said you had absolutely no clue what you were going to do about naming said child. So walk me through it. What happened?
Well, I basically just gave in to my wife, which is always the right thing to do when it comes to these sort of things. My wife is known as Joey, but her real name is Joie, like joie de vivre. And her mom really liked the French language, has no French heritage, but we have she's Jamaican, so I don't know where that came from, but we have a daughter named Chloe, a daughter named Margot, and now we have a daughter named Colette, Chris, Vernon, Jacoby.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes.
I'm glad I made it in there.
I just wanted to solidify this partnership and just let you know that my commitment to the mismatch is forever, just like Colette's middle names.
So Colette is the name?
Colette.
I love it.
We're going with a little Cole, get a little Coco in there too. You know, a little Coco. Coco, been calling her.
And everybody's healthy. Everything's fine.
Everybody's healthy. I can't say everyone's happy, but everyone's healthy. But man, what a week. What a week to be off the show. Like Stephen A. Smith is talking about swinging on LeBron. The Yankees have changed bats forever, hitting home runs. There's incest on the White Lotus. Into the Grizzlies. When something happened with the Grizzlies last week, I really wanted to talk to you about.
Hey,
I
and
forgot.
You want to hear the other crazy thing that happened? So
What?
I've been friends with Zach Lowe for like 20 years, right? So all that stuff happened last week. This is like on whatever it was, like Monday night late. You're like, yo, things are happening. Things are happening. We got to go. So I'm like, all right, we're either taking Tuesday off or I got to find somebody. So I'm like, who could I find? So I text Zach and I'm like, look, bro, I know you haven't done anything in a long, long time. I was like, but Jacoby's about to have a baby. Like, I need somebody to do the podcast with me. And he's like, I'm so sorry, Verno. I can't. Didn't say a word to me about coming to the Ringer. Didn't say a word. Then I go on Bill's pod, the pod that he announces Zach Lowe. I texted him yesterday morning. I said, what the hell? You didn't even tell me about the Zach Lowe. He's like, oh, man, sorry, I forgot. And I was like, what? What is happening? What? They kept that thing so under wraps, but obviously, what a huge get. And I am so glad that we're going to have Zach Lowe here as our brethren. Your one-time Grantland co-worker.
Of course, and Zach Lowe will admit this, so I'm not sharing any information out of school here, but Zach Lowe had absolutely zero interest in doing a podcast. He had none. He was a writer. He had no interest in doing a pod, and we had to drag him kicking and screaming in front of a microphone to start the Low Post once upon a time. And he would, there was no regular schedule. He would do it like once a month, and he begrudgingly would do a podcast. And then it was like 7 or 8 years later, he sent me a random text out of nowhere and was like, I just want to thank you for making me do a podcast. Because he is now a multimedia star. He's one of the best basketball minds. And I just want to just express how honored I am to once again be a colleague of his, because he is one of the best.
So since we last spoke, of course, the Memphis Grizzlies did shockingly fire their coach. And then they have played 2 games since, Lakers and Celtics. I went down to the Grizzlies-Celtics game last night, and I would love to tell you, Jacoby, that I get to come here this morning and I say, hey, and everything's changed, except, unfortunately, that is not the case. Why is Al Horford still good? He had 26 and 8. I mean, look, about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, I was at Tony Allen's jersey retirement ceremony, and Derrick Rose is there. And you see Derrick Rose, and then afterwards, there's like an after party, and guess who I'm there with? I'm name dropping. Guess who's there? Joakim Noah. Now, the reason I'm bringing both of these up is because Al Horford was the same draft class. Like, I just saw these guys, and now, fast forward 2 weeks, a guy that's in their draft class is dropping 26 and 8. And I'm like, what is this? How, bro? How?
Well, it's one thing for Al Horford to be knocking down threes at his sort of advanced age in the league. But don't forget that Lakers-Celtics game when Luka was just constantly just asking for Al Horford and then clearing out, and Al Horford was just locking him up the entire game. Like, it's one thing to hit threes when you're over 35. It's another thing to slide defensively and to have the impact he has on both sides. It's frustrating, to be honest with you. It's frustrating.
Well, and I will say, it was one of those nights where you watch them in person and the math don't math, as they say. They take 96 shots. They take 62 threes. Their percentages are not enormous. I mean, it's 41% from the field, 34% from three. Obviously, he hit a ton of free throws, 95% from the line. But meanwhile, they end up 34% from three, but they took 62 of them. So Memphis on the other side goes 11 for 44 from three, 25%. And as they say, the math doesn't math. It doesn't even matter. They end up still scoring 117 points in the game. And, you know, one of the things that Bill asked me about is he's like, you know, I see all these games in person. I'm down at the arena, and yesterday I was down early, and I was talking to a lot of the people that traveled with the Celtics, not team employees, not associated with the team, but rather the media that is always at those games. And I was like, so who's the team? And they're like, it's really not anybody in the East. Like, we're not scared of anybody in the East. Like, Oklahoma City's beaten them twice, but they feel good about them, you know, if they can get to that level and play against Oklahoma City. But in terms of the Eastern Conference, there's nobody they particularly fear. I will tell you this, Jacoby. I saw them last night without Jaylen Brown, and I have seen almost every single team at this point, I think, come through town. And I would say, fully healthy, I will be surprised if that team doesn't win the title.
Really?
Yes. I will be surprised if they don't win the title. Yep, I will. I will be surprised if they don't win the title. If they are fully healthy, I don't think somebody's beating them.
Well, I think, first of all, I don't want to nitpick here, but it's one thing to say they're title favorites. Another thing to say, I would be surprised if they don't. Would you really be surprised if the Oklahoma City Thunder, this historic team that is with 27-1 against the Eastern Conference, would you really be surprised if the Thunder won the championship this year?
Yes. It's the talent. It's the talent. Like, you look up there and you're like, geez Louise, they've always got somebody. Like, last night they made a thing out of Derek White set the record. Now, Derek White, I don't know where you want to put Derek White on the team. Maybe you think he's third. Maybe you think he's fourth. Maybe you think, I don't know. But, I mean, they got Drew Holiday. They got Porzingis. They got the talent. Derek White set the franchise record for most threes in a season, okay? which is pretty incredible. And in fact, the record he broke was Isaiah Thomas's in 2017. But he has hit now 246 threes for the season. Okay. And that moved him ahead of Isaiah Thomas's 2017 year. So I don't know where you want to put Derek White on their list of options, but it's like we always talk about the other guys on teams being the ones that's like, okay, like who are you leaving? If Al Horford's going to knock down threes and if Derek White's going to knock down threes and then guys come off the bench, the Sam Hausers and the Peyton Pritchards and whoever, and they're knocking down, like it's too much shooting. It's too much shooting. There's nobody to leave. Like all these teams have guys that you want to filter the shots to. Who do you want to filter shots to? Who do you want to filter shots to on that team? Because you can try. Like, I've seen it, right? Like, even the other night, it's like, okay, I'm watching against the Lakers. And it was odd to see those two teams juxtaposed against each other because I just seen the Lakers. And it's like, all right, look, you're trying to, if Rui Hachimura is going to take open threes, he's going to take open threes. And if Gabe Vincent's going to take open threes, he's taking open threes. And if you're going to, right, but there's not somebody to naturally filter the shots to on that Celtics team like there are every other team. And then when you say the Oklahoma City thing, I mean, look, again, Oklahoma City is absolutely incredible. But we know it's going to come down, or Lou Dort, or Andrew Wiggins, or not Andrew, Aaron Wiggins, or Caruso, or Kason Wallace. Like, those are the guys that the shots are going to end up getting filtered to because everybody's going to clamp down on SGA. I just watched them last night and go, and I say this, I did feel that way about Cleveland, at points where it was like, who are you trying to make sure they shoot the ball? Right? Because that's the way the playoffs go. You're dictating who is taking the shots for the other team as much as you can. And that was when last night there was that moment where I was like, well, who the hell? Like, somebody's going to be open. Like, who the hell are you supposed to leave open here? Because if the answer's
Al Horford. The answer's Al Horford, and he's knocking down the shots.
I know, right? Like, I mean, so what's the option? Like, there's no great options. P.S. that Derek White thing, when they said he had become the all-time Celtics three-point leader for makes in a season, I went and looked it up. I'm like, I mean, they shoot 1,000,000, and he's already got 246. I'm like, I don't even know what the record is for the most three-pointers in a season is. I was like, but that seems like an awful lot of threes to make 246. I'm like, I wonder where that ranks. And then I went and looked it up. Bro,
I know what you found.
The record is Steph Curry in 15-16, 402.
But what's second? Who's second? Who's third?
No. James Harden is 378 one of the years in Houston. But then it goes Curry, Harden, Curry. Klay Thompson, James Harden, and then, much to my surprise, one of the top 10 three-point shooting seasons in terms of makes in the history of the league, number 9, 2024-25, Malik Beasley.
Oh, I love it.
He is 9th all time, and he's got what? I mean, we got another week and a half of the season, or 2 weeks of the season left. So he may be able to get all the way up to, he's not going to get to the Curry range, but he could probably get to 7th and knock Thompson down a peg. But I mean, I had no idea. By the way, you go down a little bit further, Anthony Edwards this season is 12th all time in terms of three-pointer makes. Crazy. So I mean, like I'm watching it and I'm like, I thought the Derek White number was huge.
That's wild. I didn't know Beasley was that high this year.
I mean, I know Beasley's got 292.
Jeez. Well, Verno, I made the mistake of listening to you and Bill and Ryan yesterday.
Oh, no.
And I just want to say that I felt that they were rude to my co-host, Chris Vernon. I felt that they were disrespectful, and I felt like they were talking about your Memphis Grizzlies like they're the Wizards. Like it was like they were talking about your Memphis Grizzlies like they've never won anything or done anything, and they're a completely disaster of a franchise. And there's a couple things that I want to discuss with you about this firing or whatever we're calling it of Taylor Jenkins. Okay. One thing that's been discussed a lot, and it's nice to have this conversation sort of like, 72 hours after it's all kind of happened, is there's so much discussion about this new offense. And earlier this season, we discussed how they don't really run pick and roll like they used to, and they just completely don't run pick and roll like the rest of the league does. But it's also not like they're whipping the ball around either, and like in some sort of like Warriors style player movement, ball movement, pace and space manner either. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you wasn't about necessarily the firing itself, but it's more how dramatically different has the Grizzlies offense philosophy been from last year to this year? And how has that manifested on the court?
Massively different. Like the whole thing was changed. And I think that, look, they had one of the best offenses and the highest scoring offenses in the entire league. The trick was, as you know, because you became invested by watching a lot of the games that you knew I was going to be watching this season, that it did not manifest itself against the good teams. If you look, those statistics, like they've scored in their franchise history, they have scored 6 140-point games, okay? This season, they have scored over 147 times. All right?
Yeah.
Now, but if you go and look, like most recently against Utah last week, and it's fine when it's Utah and it's Brooklyn and it's Phoenix and it's like, all these teams that they have built their record by beating. But the trick was it didn't work when they played against the good teams. That's the problem, that they got to this point. And you look, and they are now 6-17 against teams in the top 8 in the Western Conference. So they played 23 games against top 8 teams, which, as we know, Jacoby, those are the teams you have to play when it comes to the playoffs. Right?
That's how it works.
Like that's how it works. That's how it works. Yeah. And they win 1 out of every 3 of those. The math doesn't math when it comes to a playoff series, right? And so, yes, the offensive philosophy changed dramatically this year. And it was hard because the results would be enormous against the bad teams or against the subpar teams or against the under 500 teams. But then when you would get into these big spots, when you're playing against the good teams, the results were not the same. And so, and I also think that then frustration mounts. It keeps on. And then look, Ramona Shelburne's got a really good article about the whole situation, like that came out today. And it talks about how they made these changes during the offseason. They flipped out Taylor Jenkins' staff. Taylor Jenkins had to go and fire 5 assistants. And he had not met these other guys. And one of the quotes in there was, "Players aren't stupid." Like they look around, they're like, "Wait, what?" And then you got 2 new guys that are teaching the offense, and it's like, okay. And I do think so, if you want to say that cut his legs out from under him in terms of being able to have the voice that you need to have as the head coach, right? Then I do think that that's something that's certainly fair to question. That being said, they made the decision. They've gone the way they've gone, and it was not what was best for Morant. We talked about that on this show all year, and anybody could go back and listen to it, even after you and I went to that Knicks game, said the trick is going to be figuring out how you can maximize your best player while still doing what you're trying to do now, because it was great for players 4 through 10, but was it? And it was great for player maybe 2 or 3. Right? If you're talking about Jaren Jackson Jr. But it wasn't great for Bane, and it wasn't great for Morant.
It almost felt like this change in offensive philosophy was a safeguard against Ja Morant's lack of availability, because the Grizzlies are famously so good without their best player.
Right.
And it did feel like this was an offensive philosophy that didn't maximize Ja Morant. And when these sort of decisions are made by franchises, I don't believe the words that I hear from those in power. When Adrian Griffin gets fired, I believe that Giannis knew about it. And when Luka gets traded to the Lakers, I believe LeBron knew about it. And when Zach Kleiman says that nobody on the roster had any idea that this decision was going to be made, I do not believe it. Do you think Ja Morant knew or influenced this decision?
I don't think that, how do I say this? I would not be surprised if Kleiman did not talk to Ja about it.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason I say that is because you didn't need to. We've watched him all year long. We've listened to his post-game quotes all year long. This is not a conversation, you know what I'm saying? It would be like if you were mopey every time we did an episode and me be like, all right, I mean, do I need to, something's obviously wrong. I don't need to investigate this, right? The guy obviously, right? He obviously can't stand this job anymore, right? And so it's like, and so it was like, I don't think that, I think Ja Morant liked Taylor Jenkins. And I think he hated the offense. And so it was like, all right, you've got this yin and yang. And that's what I said. I think he liked Taylor. And I think he does like Taylor. I think he did not like the way he was used this year. And I don't think there had to be some kind of backdoor conversations in order to figure that out. You could go find quotes from after the year. There's one of them in Ramona's this morning. One of her quotes was him basically saying, I just do what coach tells me to do. Because people were like, why are you standing in the corner?
That's what I was like.
Right. I know.
I'm watching the Grizzlies. What the hell is Ja Morant doing in the corner with his hands on his hips?
Right.
And I also think
so do
you
you think Zach Kleiman needs to go be like, hey, Ja, how are you feeling about this? You don't have to
go to Ja Morant and say, hey, we're going to make a huge change that's going to maximize you, make you happy, and put the emphasis on you having the ball more and scoring more and controlling the offense more. You say that to any star player, they're going to be down. You know? They are. They just are. And, I think that if it is inevitable that he is not going to coach the team next year, then I kind of understand the timing of it all. It's why not? Why not? If he's not going to be here next year, then why not?
No, if you've already made your mind up, it's just, the truth is, it's never happened. Literally, Mark Stein texted me yesterday. He went and looked. A winning team has never done it with less than 15 games left. I mean, there's a long history of the NBA. It's just never happened. So it's honestly, it's the timing. It's not the fact that, because commonplace has always been, even when your team tumbles towards the end of the season, you make an off-season change, and then you start fresh. You start fresh the next year, right? What you don't do is say, all right, look, we're just going to try to save this season. And they are trying to save this season. And obviously, look, they have a monstrous game tonight in terms of NBA standings, because they are playing against the Golden State Warriors on the second night of a back-to-back. And so that will be a big one. Let's get to some of the other games that have gone on. Obviously, that's been a big story since you and I last spoke, so we needed to broach it. The Pacers have been mega hot and came back from down double digits to get a win over the Sacramento Kings, who are, the Kings are one of these teams that's trying to just make sure they could stay in the play-in spot to at least have a chance in hell of getting a playoff spot. And we'll get a little bit more to the Pacers, kind of what they've done more recently. What'd you think of Clippers Magic? Paolo had been on a real heater. He was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week, but there's a couple of these teams from last night's games that I felt like, okay, now we're getting a little more playoff environment-y and playing against these teams that are really locking down and playing in a way that will. And there's a couple of them, and we'll get to Houston a little bit later, where it's like your lack of scoring and lack of guy to just throw the ball to, stop it, and get me a bucket it shows up when you're playing teams like the Clippers. And for Orlando's case, once upon a time, we were singing the song and we felt good about them. Like, if there is somebody that could upset the apple cart, it's them. Doesn't feel like them.
No.
No.
And this is, I just want to apologize to Cerruti in advance as one of the preeminent Orlando Magic fans and Kevin Clark. But silver lining on this Magic season is the oblique injuries happened. And when Paolo originally returned, he had like one good game and then he kind of swooned for a couple weeks. But he has gotten back to where he was when he started the season. And I feel that a healthy Paolo next season will give this Magic franchise and fan base sort of like what the leap they expected to see this year. I expect big things for Paolo next year is basically what I'm saying.
They are also the team that has tumbled down so dramatically. And that's the interesting thing. If we were to just compare it, I wonder what Orlando fans would think if Orlando came out today and were like, you know what, we're moving off Jamal Mosley. Like, I don't think they'd care. I'm not kidding.
I don't think so either.
Right, but it's the same thing where it's like, look, I will just tell you, people in Memphis, when you drove to the I said this to my buddies yesterday. I said, at least when I drove to the arena on Saturday, there was the unknown gives you some level of hope. Like, maybe it'll be different. Now, of course, it wasn't, but maybe it'll be different. But once you become resigned to, I'm driving to go watch a loss, I know what's going to happen. Going to get their ass kicked by the Lakers, and they're going to get their ass kicked by, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, at least the unknown is something that could make you hopeful. Maybe it can be different. And again, I don't know. Like, I think people would look and they would go, Jamal Mosley's done a great job, whatever. But I mean, that team has tumbled dramatically.
Yeah.
You know, the second half of the season. And so that's what makes it so odd that you see the Jenkins thing, and that would be the other, like that. They're kind of peers, where it's like these teams were looked at much, much differently 2 months ago than they are today.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I also think, like, well, they're different in this sense where if you're the Magic, you know what the problem is. Right. Jamal Mosley is the best shooter on the team. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. Like, they just don't have shooting. They don't have any shooting. So there is hope in that sense that there's such a blaring problem that you can fix it. Whereas the Grizzlies, it's hard to really put your finger on exactly what's going wrong there, you know? And there's a lot of speculation about Ja's future in Memphis. And, you know, as the preeminent Memphis voice.
I don't understand that. Is that because Kendrick Perkins went on the air and has been like, Ja Morant is auditioning for auditioning for what?
Well,
what is he talking about?
There was a weird rumor. I forget. I think it was our colleague Beck, I want to say, cited an executive that said, if the Grizzlies lose in the first round, keep an eye on Ja Morant. And that's kind of true for everybody, though. You know what I mean? Like,
but then you saw
kind of the case.
But then you saw the Zach Kleiman quote. It said, I'm sure there are a lot of GMs that would love to have Ja Morant. We are not trading him.
Yeah.
Like, it's nonsense. In fact, he said, it's nonsense. I can't even believe I'm having to talk about this nonsense. Right? I can't believe it. Anyways, let's get to Lakers Rockets. Okay. So this was a very interesting one. And I will say that I saw the Lakers game, obviously, in person against Memphis on Saturday night, then this game last night against Houston. I text you. I had gotten home early because the game was on TNT, so I was able to see this one. And was it 16-16 at the end of the first quarter?
16,
I was like, hey, glad I raced home for this. I was like, good, 16-16? What is happening? This is crazy.
And also these late games, sometimes I'm rooting for someone to go up by 20 so I can just go to sleep. But again, this one went down to the end. And this is not the first time where Ime Udoka has just decided that either Şengün or Jalen Green is not going to finish the game in the clutch, period. This happens like every other game when they're in a tight game. He'll just decide whichever one of those two is having an off night or he's unhappy with, that he just benches in the end. And last night it was Jalen Green. We've said the whole time, and a lot of people have said that they don't have a go-to crunch time player that most teams do. Like most teams have a go-to player when they need a bucket at the end, and the Rockets do not. And I didn't think it was that big a deal until you're watching games like last night, where it's just right there in front of you. And you wonder about playoff success with this team.
This episode is brought to you by Walmart. Life gets busy, and we could all use an extra hour or save one. With Walmart Express Delivery, you can do just that. Simply place your order. In as fast as an hour, it's at your door. Use promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order. No hassle, no stress, just more time for what matters most. Visit walmart.com to order now. Promotion valid with first express delivery order. $50 minimum, subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Hey, let me tell you about one of my favorite bets that FanDuel has right now. They're called Player Performance Doubles. If you don't know about them, you got to check them out. These are two-leg parlays that are already constructed for you. FanDuel takes an NBA player prop, then combines it with a bet on that player's team to win. They have a bunch of them for every game. You just have to pick one you like. Now, I believe the Memphis Grizzlies, after all the drama of the past week, will finally get it together and get a win against the Warriors. And all of this discussion about Ja Morant and his involvement in the firing or not involvement in the firing and the offense, and are they going to run pick and rolls? Or are they going to run more pick and rolls? I think that will all lead to him having a big game and the Grizzlies to win against the Warriors. And whether you want to ride with my pick or make your own, FanDuel is giving all customers a profit boost exclusively for these bets on Tuesday. Get it? Double Performance Tuesday. So just head to FanDuel.com/mismatch to get your profit boost. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Remember, you must be 21 or over and present in select states, or 18 and over and present in D.C. Opt-in is required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
Okay, this is perfect because this is going to lead us straight into our 6 players that we're keeping an eye on through this stretch run as we head to the playoffs, okay? We've each outlined 3 different players that we really are keeping an eye on through this last stretch and then as we get to the playoffs, right? The number 1 guy on my list was Jalen Green. And a part of it is what you just mentioned from last night. So keep in mind, Jacoby, Jalen Green, and this is good. They're in the second spot right now in the Western Conference. And so he's going to be getting a spotlight on him that he has never had in his NBA career. This is not a team that's featured on national TV all that much, and he's going to have a different spotlight on him than he's ever had before. Going into this game last night, his last 4, he scored 33 points, 21 points, 32 points, 30 points. And then he played against the Lakers last night, and he had 9. And he was minus 11 in the box score, and his coach didn't bring him back in at the end of the game, much to the surprise of the announcing crew. They were like, kind of odd that Jalen Green's not coming back in the game. And the crazy thing is, it's like he is the guy that you could just throw it to him and theoretically he could go create his own shot. But he doesn't do it all that efficiently, as we have chronicled, right? He's 43% field goal guy and 35% from three. And this is the concern. And it's going to be interesting to see what Jalen Green does when it comes to the playoffs. It's also going to be interesting to see what that Rockets team does when it gets to the playoffs, because as we have talked about, they are a feisty team. They play hard. They are a fantastic defensive team that can fly around. But they are offensively well below their peers. Like when you shorten out those lineups, as you do, and they played 8 guys last night, right? Their top 8 guys, Green shoots 43%. Van Vliet is a 38% field goal guy, okay? Brooks is 42%. Jabari even is 44%. I mean, they got 4 of their major guys that would be shot takers that are less than 45% from the field. And now you're talking about teams loading up on one guy to take one guy completely out, right? Maybe it would be Şengün, maybe it'll be Green, maybe it'll be whoever. But I thought instructive, you're playing against a big team. You're playing against a team with vets on it last night against the Lakers. And I thought that was super disappointing. Those are the kind of games that you want Jalen Green to be able to pop off in to make you feel good about the playoff chances. Because if you're looking around, you're going, who can I really count on offensively tonight? Game 1, NBA playoffs. And I'm not saying that it can't happen, but what I am saying is we've got to watch them, because here's the deal, Jacoby. We talked about this when you mentioned them a week ago. They go through a 5-game stretch here that is absolutely brutal.
Yep.
Brutal. Like, you could for sure lose 4 or 5 of them and still be a good team. Like, it's just a really, really hard schedule. But it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with him, what happens with Udoka, and what happens with that team going on the last week and a half of the season as they are heading into these playoffs. Are they able to hold on to that 2 spot? And also, who are the guys that step up against these good teams? Because all of these teams that they're playing, outside of maybe Oklahoma City, who is just on a warpath, but they all want to win. They're all playing for positioning as well. And so I thought that was a bit troubling, seeing Jalen Green struggle like he did and then get benched at the end of the game, because he is the natural candidate to be okay, we're in a tight game, go get a shot, brother. And
not just that. There's also, as you mentioned earlier, when you get into playoffs, you're game playing against the same guys night after night. And you talk about filtering shots toward players. Jalen Green is one of those guys. You know what I mean? Like, you're worried about him slashing and kicking. You're worried about him slashing and finishing or getting to the line or whatever, but you can leave him alone to shoot. Tyrese, and you can let him shoot too. They've got a couple guys that are great athletes but don't have the touch, the shooting touch, and the scoring power that you need. Like you mentioned the Celtics, there's no one you can really just leave alone. But the Rockets have a couple guys that you can kind of leave alone, and they will be doing that. And Jalen Green, if he's knocking them down, they'll play well. But if he ain't, it's a world of trouble.
And I think the reason I was so effusive in my praise about the Celtics, bro, I saw the Celtics without Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
The guy won final MVP.
Hold on.
I saw him without him.
Great transition.
Okay.
Because I went with a different list. My guys are a little more like role player, X factor kind of guys, right? Fair. Do you know who else the Celtics were without last night?
Kornet.
Kornet is another one of my guys to keep an eye on with the Celtics, because first of all, I want to give a shout out to Chris Forsberg, who wrote a Kornet piece that I completely just plagiarized to get the stats for my Kornet speech here. So shout out to Chris Forsberg. But
I love it.
He is 4th in the NBA in net rating at 14.4 per 100 possessions. Now, I don't love the per 36 minutes, per 100 possessions. Sometimes, like, there's a reason he's not playing 36 minutes.
Right.
So we can say per 36 minutes, but if he was better, he would play 36 minutes.
It's like when they used to do that, and Boban would average 50 and 20.
Yeah, exactly.
But he only played 4 minutes.
Put him out there for 36 minutes and see what happens.
He played 4 minutes. They're like, if you extrapolate it, if you put Boban out there, he'd have 50 and 20 in the game.
There has been some discussion recently, and you saw the team we just discussed. The Rockets have been toying with the too big lineup, but keeping Adams out there with Sengun, and there's obviously Chet and iHeart, sort of that too big, and the Kornet and KP combination, 141 minutes, has a net rating of 22.7. It's not nothing, and 141 is not a huge sample size, but that's something. And when Kornet plays more than 16 minutes, the Celtics are 31-6. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and say into a microphone that Luke Kornet is going to be the future of the Celtics franchise and that he's an all-star or whatever, because he's just a very interesting X-factor player that the Celtics can rely on. And we also know that Kristaps Porzingis does a lot for them, but he's not always available for them. And I think that with Kornet and Horford, as we saw last year, losing Porzingis does not take them out of it. The way that you kind of feel about the Bucks without Dame, who might come back. But like, it just feels like with KP's lack of availability historically and Kornet's ascension this season, he's an important player for the Celtics that you would not think about.
For sure. All right, next player on my list. And we had mentioned earlier this come-from-behind win for the Pacers against the Kings, but it is Tyrese Haliburton. And don't look now, but Tyrese Haliburton, while everybody's head was turned one way, has decided since the All-Star break, in 16 games, he has shot 54% from the field, 45% from three, 93% from the line, and has given them 21, 11, and 3 with basically no turnovers every night. He has been absolutely awesome. And it is kind of the craziest thing that we would look at a team that did not have massive changes from what took place last year, and many disregarded the fact that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Oh, the Knicks were all banged up, and this is what happened, or whatever else. But if you look at this team, and now they've even got, like last year, Matherin, they lost him for the end of the season, and he's like a big piece of what they've got going. They are deep. They have been great recently, and it's like, I think we have, wherever there was that moment about a year and a half ago where if you were ranking the top 10 players in the league, the top 20 players in the league, Tyrese Haliburton, we were talking about that leading into the in-season tournament, right?
Oh, yeah.
In Vegas. Like, I remember I showed up in Vegas and there was Haliburton, like, billboards everywhere, the in-season tournament. And it was like, this is the coming out party, right? This is the ascension to superstar that people have been thinking about could take place with him. And then he got hurt, and then he tried to play through it so he could get to the 65 game mark last year. And then he was never that guy that we saw leading up to December, right? Those first 2 months of the season, he was one of the best players in the entire league. And then after post injury, he was nowhere close to that. And now it's like, don't look now, but Tyrese Haliburton has been playing like one of the best players in the entire NBA, and we're headed towards playoff time, and they got a hot team and a star that is playing out of his mind.
It's easy to forget just how highly regarded Haliburton was at that time. Like at that moment in time, during the in-season tournament last year, and I swear to God, if you said, list 10 players that you would want to sort of like, if you had an expansion team, if you were the Seattle Sonics, list 10 players that you would just like start to build a franchise around, Haliburton would be on that list. with the Giannis's and the Jokic's and everything. We all know what happened. And he also they beat the Knicks in that series, but he did not have a great series against the Knicks. They won that series, but he made a lot of mistakes in the end of games, and he just really wasn't himself coming back from that injury. And I also think that there's a little bit of a parallel between the Lakers and the Pacers, and I'll map it out for you. Is with the Lakers, you say, oh well, they got Luka, and that has re-energized the team. But really what it is Gabe Vincent's playing better, and DFS, they got him too. And I think you could say the same thing about the Pacers, where there's a lot of focus on Haliburton because he has turned around. He has returned to form. But Nesmith and Mathurin and Nembhard, it's not just Haliburton sort of carrying this team with an individual effort. It's all the other players returning to form or returning from injury and them peaking at the right time. Well, as someone who supports the Knicks, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see them in round one.
Well, and by the way, it doesn't appear like you're going to get to anyway, right? It doesn't look like, unless the Knicks really falter here at the end of the year. The other thing is their leading scorer and the guy that is the most consistent is Pascal Siakam, but nobody even thinks about Pascal Siakam.
No. Yeah.
Because there's no highlights, right? He's not a highlight player. And so he's just one of those lunch pail guys. He's going to do his 10 spin moves a game, and he's going to get you 20 and 10 and he's going to be good at it.
And in transition, people always talk about Giannis and Christian Brown or Josh Hart in transition. Pascal Siakam is also he's getting you a bucket in transition. And you did a great job transitioning me to my next player. Because when you say no highlights, I literally don't think this player has had a highlight in his entire career.
Wait,
he's been in the league for 7 years.
Wait, did you do the wrong list? Because your first guy was Luke Kornet. Did you do the highlight?
No, this guy's a little bit more established than Luke Kornet, and that is Zubac. And we've celebrated Zubac season already on this pod. But in the Clippers win just last night, 18 points and 20 rebounds and 5 assists in 38 minutes. He's had 52 double-doubles in 73 games. He's got 16.5 points a game, 62% from the floor. And again, it's not pretty. There's no fancy passes like Jokic. There's no 40-point games, but it's just jump hook after jump hook, post-ups, picks and pops, pick and rolls, and he's slow, and he's just good enough on defense that he's not a liability, that he is an absolute perfect player for this team right now, with the way that Powell has gotten better, with the way that Harden is running the offense. And if you get the Kawhi that we've discussed, if you get the Kawhi that we've seen flashes of in the last couple weeks with Zubac, Powell, Harden, that's a tough out, man. That is a real tough out.
Look, I've been high on the Clippers, and I'll tell you this. After watching the Lakers on Saturday night, after watching the Lakers last night, let me tell you something. The last thing you want to see if you're them is that team coming in sixth.
Mm-hmm.
If you get 3 and you got them playing you and they're the 6th seed, it's like Zubac could. They have nothing inside. They have no big guy.
Who are you calling? Vando?
Right.
Jackson Hayes?
There's nobody.
Zubac?
Yeah, there's nobody to deal with him. And it's he can create a real advantage against some of these teams. A real advantage. He would destroy. He does destroy Memphis. Destroys them. Destroys them. And it's this is the thing. It's okay, in the absence of Anthony Davis, that's the deal. When you watch the Lakers, it's man, what? Who's that last line of defense when they drive by Austin Reeves or Luka? And who's that guy that's going to deal with another awesome big guy? Look, Zach Edey had probably his best game of the year against LA on Saturday night. Yeah. And that is more about LA than it is about Zach Edey. No offense.
And I think we obviously the Clippers will go as Kawhi goes, but I think it's a forgotten game. I think I have this right. Game 1 Clippers Mavs last year, Zubac absolutely dominated Gafford and Lively. And the story of the postseason was Gafford and Lively breakout. What great moves from the Mavericks front office to bring these bigs in and lob for Luka and all of that. But game one, Zubac absolutely ate their lunch. And then Kawhi goes down and, the series isn't even competitive. But that Zubac he's got some playoff scars and he's just so consistent because you think about Jalen Green and how inconsistent he is and unreliable he is. And that's what we love about Jokic, SGA, Tatum, always available, always consistent. And that's Zubac too. He's just consistent. Like Sabonis. He's going to get you a double-double.
Well, and this is going to be perfect because my last player is Anthony Davis, who is actually about to face those Clippers twice. They play them back-to-back.
Oh, that's right.
Does Dallas. And so that group that you were talking about, and it's like they have what was supposed to be the easiest of the schedules between Dallas, Sacramento, and Phoenix. They got 3 teams trying to get 2 spots. But that included Brooklyn, and they smoked that game last night. Losing to the Nets at that point of the season, that's like the one that you'll look back on and be like, Jesus, why? Like, what? Because they needed that Brooklyn win. Well, because now they've got, tell me you've seen it. Tell me you've seen what they're doing. Yeah, the South Park thing. Yeah. Timmy!
Yeah, I love it.
That is wild.
So much.
That is wild. Timmy! I can't believe they're playing that sound clip when he scores.
I love it.
It is crazy. Yeah, I guess if you're Brooklyn, who gives a crap? Anyways, look, now the Mavs have Hawks, Clippers. So, like, part of that having a easier schedule down the stretch was because you had Brooklyn last night, and they smoked the game. And so now it's like, geez, I don't know what's going to happen against the Hawks and the Clippers. But the reason I'm saying Anthony Davis is because he has come back. He hasn't been great. And Lord knows they don't want him to get hurt again. But he is the one guy that when you look, especially with Durant having the ankle thing and who knows what's going to happen with him, he is the one guy that to me of that group down there at the bottom, which very well may include Memphis and Minnesota or one of those, and it might include, and then you talk about Sacramento, whatever. He is the one guy that I look at, and they've got, and their whole team's like basically vets. But if he can round into form and be like dominant Anthony Davis, best player on the court, Anthony Davis, he is the one guy in that group that I think you truly would fear in just a 2-game set. Like, you're playing him one game. Like, the idea that Anthony Davis could be the most dominant player on the court for 2 straight games and them get into the playoffs is not crazy to me at all.
No.
It's not crazy to me at all. Against these teams?
When Kyrie got hurt, and remember, because at the time, Gafford's out, Lively's out, I did not expect to see Anthony Davis again this season. I think that he deserves to be celebrated for coming back. And because everything that's happened with that franchise, that fan base, the front office, it's been an absolute disaster and a mess. And Anthony Davis says, this season's not over. We're in the play-in, and then we have a puncher's chance. Like you said, Anthony Davis can give you 35 and 15 and drag you to a couple of victories, and then you lose in the first round, whatever. But just for that fan base and just for momentum for next season and just for everything for Dallas, I really commend him for coming back, because when Kyrie went down, I did not expect to see Anthony Davis again. I kind of wrote up. Like, you see what the Pelicans did. The Pelicans were like, yeah, Zion's out, CJ's out. I just felt like it would be one of those. Durant, we might not see Durant again, but I fully expected to not see him again, and for him to come back and play and keep them competitive. I think it's really important for that franchise. It's just,
and we're going to keep an eye on him over these last 2 weeks, because if he could round into form and be Anthony Davis again, that's all I'd say. That is not the team you want to see when it comes to a just 1-game set. You got to beat them to get to go to the playoffs because he could just win the game by himself.
Yeah.
Who's your last one?
This is a bit of recency bias.
Okay.
And I did sort of mention it earlier, but I think with the Lakers, there's so much of they trade for Luka. LeBron is re-energized. Luka doesn't even take the floor, but LeBron has completely changed player just because Luka's around in street clothes on the bench. But it is, last night was a great example of what we're talking about when it gets to the playoffs is they're going to filter shots to DFS and they're going to filter shots to Gabe Vincent. And Gabe Vincent on the Lakers has just been disastrous. Like, remember him on the Heat? Remember those playoff runs? Like, it was like, who is this guy? He was like a star on the Heat. And then when he was added to the Lakers, I expected that Gabe Vincent to be there, and he just has not. But he has been hot recently.
It was very Bryn Forbes-y. You remember when you would watch?
Yes.
You'd watch the Spurs, like, Bryn Forbes? And then, like,
I completely forgot about Bryn Forbes.
I know, but then, like, and then you never saw him again.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm doing a little research because I picked Gabe Vincent to highlight. And Lake Show Life, that's like a Laker blog or whatever, on December 11th.
I would have never guessed
Gabe Vincent stats.
That's a Laker blog, huh? I would have never guessed.
Show Life. Yeah.
Lake Show Life.
Yeah. It's not about lakes. They have a blog post titled on December 11th, Gabe Vincent is becoming unplayable. That's not that long ago. He was becoming unplayable. And last night he knocks down 6 threes. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like he's Lou Dort on defense, but for a team that does not have a lot of defensive stoppers, he can stay in front of a guard. You know, like, and again, you mentioned there's no help in the back line. So you need somebody that can stay in front of somebody. I think that Gabe Vincent's going to have a lot of opportunity to knock down open threes and to make a difference in these playoffs. And he's someone to keep an eye on. Sure.
I'll tell you this. We cursed his name quite a bit on Saturday night because it's like, as I said, you come out, you got these game plans. Oh, you're facing Luka and LeBron. This is what you want to do. And now, Austin Reeves. And then I'm like, when did Gabe Vincent turn into Klay Thompson? If you go back and watch the beginning of that Memphis game, they scored 39 points in the first quarter, and Gabe Vincent was like NBA Jam. Yeah. It was crazy. I'm like, really? Gabe Vincent? Like, this is the guy you theoretically want to be taking the shots. Like, that's what we talked about.
Exactly.
You know? Like, all right, if somebody's got to be open, we're going to leave that guy open.
And that's it. He's he's shooting 36% from three, which is kind of like, it's good for him, but it's not great. But in the last 10 games is 46.7%. And you're kind of like we saw the Mavs last year. Is you just got to get hot at the right time. It's like a hockey goalie in the playoffs. Like, well, if you're shooting 50% from three in the playoffs, and you're Gabe Vincent, that changes everything for the Lakers.
For sure, because here's the deal. You're going to be wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens. Sometimes when these guys are wide-ass open, all of a sudden they're not, whatever their statistics are, that doesn't apply to them being wide open. Like, I remember my son probably 5 or 6 years ago now, we're at the very end of a season, and he's all in, and we went to a game early. He came to the game with me. And it was at the very end of the season. There was a bunch of guys that were out, so you were having to, like, fill out the roster with, like, 10-day guys, okay? So one of the 10-day guys they called him literally off his couch, was Tyler Zeller, okay? Tyler Zeller. So Tyler Zeller shows up, and me and my son go to the game, and we're there like an hour early. So we're there to watch the warm-ups. And Tyler Zeller comes out, and when I tell you, Jacoby, this is in March, he has not played in the NBA all year. We watch this guy hit like 25 top-of-the-key threes in a row. And my son is like, is he the best shooter? I'm like, this dude was literally on a couch all year. I'm like, and for sure he's not. I was like, but this is what you would need to understand, William. This is what NBA players are.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to take them out to a court, and just leave them wide ass open, even a guy that's been on his couch for the last 9 months can knock down 20 of them in a row like it's nothing. And so that's what I always think about when it's like, oh, wow, I can't believe Derrick Jones Jr. Shot the thunder out of it. It's like, I mean, there was nobody within 40 yards of him. I'd hope. If you can't make those, then you're unplayable.
And
right?
you're gonna get your opportunities because Luka and LeBron, they can pass the ball. They're gonna get you the ball right in the shooting pocket, and you're gonna get the ball, and it's gonna land right. That's one thing I love about LeBron James is his accuracy passing. It's gonna be right on the hip, right on the right side, right where you want it. And you're gonna be naked open. I was looking at Gabe's Vincent stats, and I think that 82% of his threes are assisted, or 82% of his buckets.
Of course,
and he's not taking step backs. He's not ISOing his man and asking for a pick and getting a mismatch and creating his own bucket. He's knocking down open shots, and Luka and LeBron will get him those open shots. I think he'll be important to them.
2 years ago, this will be good because we started the show talking about Taylor Jenkins. And 2 years ago, Memphis played against L.A. in the playoffs. And if you go back, game 1, Austin Reeves ended up having the beat the chest game winner, whatever. But that whole series, Rui Hachimura was unbelievable. He turned into the best three-point shooter in the world. And Taylor Jenkins, to his credit, it was basically that's who we want to shoot. We did a good job on LeBron. We did a good job on Anthony Davis. That is who we want. Theoretically, that's who we want to take the shots. It's not working out.
It is.
It's not working out.
I remember that series, and I remember Rui, and I was thinking to myself, he's turned the corner. That guy from Gonzaga, that high draft pick, the Wizards, and he's turned the corner. He's turned into the person that we always thought he was going to be, and it didn't happen again. Did not happen again. And I do want to bookend this with one of my thoughts about Taylor Jenkins. When he was hired by Memphis, I was shocked that there's a white guy with the last name Jenkins. I was just shocked. I've never seen this before in my whole entire life. I was shocked, floored. When I saw his picture, see, that guy's last name is Jenkins?
Leroy Jenkins. All right, we have one special voicemail that we've got to get to before we get out of here today. I hope I'm not catching Jesse off guard, but he had told me last week when I was going to play a voicemail, he said, hey, I've got a voicemail for when Jacoby comes back.
Oh.
And I was like, well, so do I need to hold it? And he's like, yes. And I was like, well, can I hear it? And he said, no.
And he goes, let's give him the number if people want to call. I don't know the number. Hit us in the chat, Jesse.
And he said it was a song. He said it was a song that somebody called in our voicemail line and sang a song. And you can leave us a voicemail at 323-389-5091. 323-389-5091. All right, so we've been holding on to this. I have no idea what it is, but Jesse told me we've got to wait until Jacoby comes back because he loves songs too. I was like, all right, let's hear it.
When I saw him play ball down in Chino Hills, he sunk a half-court shot and it gave me the chills from the logo. L-O-G-O logo. Well, I'm not dumb, but I can't understand why he fell to third behind Edwards and Wiseman. That's LaMelo. M-E-L-O Mello. LaMelo. He can shoot, he can pass, he's got the height. Some say he could be Jason Kidd Light. Halfway through the season, it was clear. LaMelo deserved Rookie of the Year. I'm not the world's most emotional guy, but when he broke his wrist, I almost cried for LaMelo. M-E-L-O Mello.
LaMelo. Talent.
LeVar almost ruined Lonzo's career.
Third
Melo
verse.
said, look, Dad, this stopped here. MJ smiled and took him by the hand. He said, come on, little boy, I'm gonna make you a man. Well, I'm not the world's biggest Hornets fan, but I know what I am, and that's a LaMelo stan. LaMelo. La, 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 LaMelo. La, 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 LaMelo.
Wow. I mean, that's
Did the guy even wait? Hold on. Did the guy even give his name?
Didn't even give his name or anything. Just broke out into song. And when he said Chino Hills, you knew exactly what he was going to sing about. The second he said Chino Hills.
Wait, the guy called our voicemail line and just sang that and hung up.
Just hang that and hung up. He doesn't see that. You know, he's about the team. He just wants the mismatch to be great. He doesn't want his own personal brand. He didn't drop his Instagram handle or anything. He is just a true musician, a true talent. Shout to him. Shout to him for calling 323-389-5091.
I hope he started a thing. We need more songs. Call the voicemail line and sing your song. Can you top LaMelo?
Let me ask you a quick question, Verno, before we go. Because I've always been a LaMelo fan for a long time. I've always liked his game, right? And I was high on him before the draft.
Okay.
My question is this, can he be like a second option on a really good playoff team, or is he just perfect for the Hornets because there's no stakes and he can kind of do whatever he wants? I honestly don't know the answer.
I'm still undecided.
Me too. I don't know the answer.
I'm still undecided. He is mega talented, man.
Of course.
And I wish they would have had their guys this year with him and Miller and Grant Williams. And again, they would not have been great, but I mean, they would have been a reasonable team. You know, they got destroyed by injury this year. I think he's still young, and I think he could still. I think it's. I got it. People are going to say, "Well, he's been in the league for 5 years. He's been in the league for whatever." I mean, guys change at different times. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just had this discussion when I was having to be Scott Jennings on CNN against Ryan and Bill. I mean, you know, I look, I don't give up on talent. I don't give up on or what talent could be capable of. And here's what we know. The hard part is being that awesome. That's the hard part.
Yes.
The hard part is being that awesome. So if you're that awesome, I'll still hold out hope that there's a chance. Right?
Yeah. And at the time, I totally understand why the Warriors picked Wiseman. And in theory, what he was supposed to be is exactly what the Warriors needed. But man, if we could just go back, I would love to see LaMelo. I
do worry that he has played so much losing basketball that it will just affect him for the rest of the time. That because and I'm talking about losing basketball with no consequence, right? That's not that you can get away with so much. That was my criticism of watching Charlotte earlier this year. Even if you're going to be terrible, there still has to be accountability. You still can't just take any kind of shot, and you still can't just not play defense, and you still can't just, there still has to be an accountability. You still have to try to play the right way and play winning basketball and be accountable. And I feel like accountability went out of the window long time ago with that squad. It's just all right, hopefully get Cooper Flag. Yeah.
What a song.
Yep.
God, what a talented mismatch listener that is. I love that he didn't leave his voicemail. That's great.
It's probably Ed Sheeran. All right.
It was Ed Sheeran.
All right. Thank you to Jesse Lopez as always. And Jacoby, I'll talk to you next week. Later this week.
Friday.
What am I talking about? Yeah, I'll talk to you Friday.
Must be 21 and over and present in select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 and over and present in D.C. Got a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.